We could start by doing German terrible expressions. Like, the Carmudgeon Show is part of the Haggerty Broadcasting... The Carmudgeon Show is part of the Haggerty Podcast Network.
Network.
I did it. I said it. The Haggerty Podcast Network. Oh, you know what you have to do?
How do you say it in Deutsch?
Applause bitte. No, I want more applause. What were we just talking about? Oh, horrible German sayings. What was the first one?
Oh, that's because I was talking about Heckflosser.
You were talking about some...
Rosquist.
Rosquist?
She's obviously not German.
Yeah, I was going to say that does not sound German. It sounds more like it's Swedish or something.
Yeah.
And she apparently did what?
Argentine rally. Won it.
Why?
Because they told her she couldn't finish. So she said, they said I could not finish, so I finished first.
But was she Finnish?
I don't think so.
I mean, it'd be awesome if she's like, you cannot finish, but I am Finnish. No, you cannot finish the rally. Then I finished first because I'm Finnish. So which started a discussion about German sayings that are really sexist. Like, Frauen am Steuer, das wird teuer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Americans have an analogous statement.
We do? That's so offensive.
A mentality. Maybe there's not an explicit statement to that effect, but it's definitely a mentality that Americans would hold.
Then you can translate that for the audience so I don't get in trouble for doing so.
When women steering, then that becomes expensive, I guess.
Yes, it was a derogatory little rhyme because Steuer is like the say am Steuer means sitting at the wheel, like in controlling
doing the
car,
act of
driving.
steering.
Yeah, driving. And Steuer rhymes with teuer, which
means expensive.
Frauen am Steuer, das wird teuer. The other one is no, I'm not going to say the other one.
You could say it in German only and not translate it.
Really?
Oh, I don't know.
What are they going to do with this?
I don't know.
Nach dem Essen sollst du rauchen oder eine Frau gebrauchen. Hast du beides nicht zur Hand, dann wächst du eines fürs Vaterland.
I mean, it is after lunchtime. No, I'm not translating it. Okay. Wow.
All of you who speak German in the comments, please. I think we're going to have to delete that. This is the problem. This is what happens when you go to high school in Germany. And they're like, oh, you're American. We teach you all the good shit. And they teach you all the really terrible stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you become a grown-up and you remember it because, I don't remember where I was yesterday, but stuff that I learned when I was 15 in high school, right there.
And heaven forbid if you were trying to do something genuinely useful in Germany. You can't do that, but just keep the good rhymes at hand.
Generally useful. I was in high school. What was I supposed to be doing that was useful?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm egging cars and I would never do that.
But you were, have you told on the podcast before the story about the...
Sorry. I'll let you finish that sentence and then I'll be like, shh, cut, what?
The digit, the number of digits on the Sie fahren sign. You probably have
Probably the biggest ticket I ever got.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, technically I didn't get
your father got the ticket. Well, your father got arrested. Anyway.
God damn it, Derek. So, yeah, I'm going to have to, I mean, we can't not, you can't I was 18 or 19. I don't know, came back from such an asshole. I came back for the summer and I was driving. My dad had a work car that was an Opel Calibra 2-liter 8-valve, 6-speed, 5-speed. I think it was a 5-speed. Anyway, stick shift Calibra. And I had two friends in the car and we were driving into this little town and it had one of those signs that says your speed is, and it displayed my speed and it was a 30 zone. So in Germany, when you're on a Landstrasse, a country road, it's 100 unless otherwise indicated 100K. And then as soon as you hit the yellow sign that tells you you're inside town limits, it goes to 50K. And then there was subsequently a 30K sign. But it was one of those, like you're coming into this town in the middle of nowhere and there's whatever. So we came in at, a reasonable speed, like, I don't know, 150, and then slowed down normally. And it said your speed is 38 or whatever it was. And that started a discussion among me and my idiot friends, the same ones who told me those horribly offensive statements that I do take back, having just said them. And they're like, there's no third digit on that. Like, what would have happened if you were doing like 102 in a 30 zone? And so we had to find out because of science. So I turned around, went out of town, hauled ass about, I don't know, half a mile up the road and floored it. And we came into town and apparently there's a third digit because it said 172.
Well, that's more than half a mile.
Whatever. It was a quick car. I don't know how far it was. It was in meters. I can't tell. Yeah. So anyway, so boom. But when it said 172, it flashed. And I was like, oh no, like I'm going to get shot by this. And one of my idiot friends, who's not an idiot at all, is like, no, you don't have to worry. They time the camera. This is film days, right? I mean, this is 1990, whatever. Statute of limitations has long since expired on this. He's like, they time it. So if it's a 30 zone, they time the flash to only go off after a certain amount of time, so to make sure the front of your car is in focus and is in frame, because obviously it couldn't pan. And he's like, you were going so much over the speed limit that basically they're just going to have a picture of your back bumper or no car at all. You're fine. So I didn't say anything to my dad, whose company car it was registered at his office. And he had gotten many visits from the police over things that my mom had done while we were living there. And nothing happened for a couple months. And then I got the phone call, which I think is the maddest my father's ever been at me, which is saying something because he has a temper and I was a child.
Ill-tempered.
He's ill-tempered and so am I. And it was something along the lines of, beep, beep, beep. I can't say any of what he said to me. The fuck are you doing? So apparently he was in his office and the police showed up with a picture of me and my two idiot friends looking right at the camera, because that's where the speed limit sign, the your speed is sign was. And so he just sees the secretary go right over there, and they walk to his office and they're like, well, this is clearly not you, but you have to come down to the police station to identify this person. And there you were, the fucking three idiots here looking right at the fucking camera and laughing, blah, blah, blah. Like we didn't know it was a camera. I don't give a fuck. 172 and a 30.
Impressive.
Kilometers.
You're a very high achiever.
And let me tell you one thing. I was 18. I was stupid, but also there was nothing around.
I mean, what is that? That's like 105 miles an hour?
No, 160 is 100. So 170 would be 112 plus 2 is about 113 in an 18 zone. Or thereabouts. But again, in my defense, we were just doing it.
You also could have just been going like 100K or 110K.
If you're going to fucking send it, send it. If I taught you nothing, son, that's probably what my father would have said if it was someone else's kid who got busted at 101. But it did get apparently perfectly focused, centered, right in the picture. The three idiots looking right at the camera. And I had to explain to him, I'm like, no, we didn't know. Doesn't matter. And, again, unsafe, horrible, statute of limitations is gone, but also nothing around. It's not like we were going
except for a village.
Well, it was forthcoming. We were about to really actually enter the village, but we hadn't really yet, or I would have done that. Even at 18, I wasn't that stupid. I mean, I survived to this point.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for fucking ratting me out.
Sure.
172.
Did we have a topic today, or is this just going to be story time with Jason?
No, it's story time with both of us. And by the way, don't fucking blame me on that. All I told you was, offensive German sexist things, and you turned it into story time with Jason. I want story time with Derek.
I don't have any stories. I am an angel.
I think regular listeners of this podcast already have enough information on you to convict.
Huh.
So you might want to go, oh, fuck, we forgot to turn the house lights off. I don't know. Hold on. We're going to have ready? Oh.
That's positively dark.
So much
more
bluer.
Blue, yes.
I would say yes, less
We
yellow.
are blue.
That would imply that. Oh, Jesus Christ, Derek. Because they imply that you were drinking and you had some sort of jaundice situation going on.
Right, of course.
Okay, so this episode was going to start out with me asking you to fill in to complete this sentence. Also, it was supposed to start out with me being able to speak English in full sentences without stuttering.
Try Haggerty Podcast Network. Should we say that again?
This 62nd episode? Third. 63rd episode of The Carmudgeon Show is brought to you by the Haggerty Podcast Network.
Okay.
Or in German, this 63rd episode of the Haggerty Podcast Network show called The Carmudgeon Show, which is...
you should use German grammar. Where you split the sequences where the infinitive goes at the end.
If I did that, we would see on the YouTube how many people fast forward past sections. Like the attention rate would drop to 0 because people are like, what? Fuck him.
Yes.
I'm going to have you complete the sentence. Never have I ever, or never have I ever.
Am I speaking from your perspective or my perspective?
No, yours. Isn't that like a stupid game that, like, you know?
Oh, yes.
Teenagers play while they're playing sleepover?
Yes, correct.
Never have I ever.
It's like truth or dare.
That'd be a fun one. That'd be a fun one to do on this thing. I think the truth, you just gave it away. Truth or dare, truth. Did you ever get a ticket for 172 and a 30? Shit. Never have I ever.
You never got a ticket. Never have you ever.
That was before I'd ever been actually personally given a the speeding ticket. My actual first speeding ticket was a 110 and a 55 miles per hour.
That's an impressive achievement.
I started out right.
I don't think I ever have exceeded 100 on a ticket.
I was going to say, you exceeded 100 on the way to lunch, which is interesting because
I wasn't even driving.
Paolo, he's the hidden Italian. I swear, with a dog in the passenger seat, it was very
The dog was going 110.
Yeah, but that's only because he was doing laps of the car. Oh my God, where are we going? We're going to have lunch.
Never have you ever.
Yeah. Never have you ever. Never have I ever. Done 100 miles an hour, for example, you could say. This is truth.
Not documented by the California Highway Patrol or any other.
Statute of limitations on most of this stuff doesn't apply because it all happens in Mexico.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that the way the internet works?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What have you never done?
I did something I had never done, and that was what I was trying to get at, obviously. I took a car that we have both owned, your sloppy seconds, as it were, and I dropped it off at a shop and am paying someone to do preventative maintenance and repair work.
It's the first time you've done that in your life?
Last month I dropped rose gold off to have it fixed because I needed to just make her go away. And that's to my friend, so that doesn't count. But this is an actual business transaction where I dropped off a car and said, make timing belts no longer old, make oil leak no longer rival the Exxon Valdez disaster, and I'll be back when you're done to pick it up. And I'm very...
How do you feel?
I'm genuinely scared. Genuinely scared. So the shop I dropped it off has seen this car before. Actually, I pulled up and the guy... So here's the thing. It's called Dino Motors. This is not a plug for them. I did not get a fucking deal. I should have. I should have been like, do you know how much exposure I can give you on their Carmudgeon Show? And they would have been like, fuck you. Who are you? Get out. Dino Motors, which I dropped off a Ferrari 308 GT4. Dino, that number one. Number two, they've seen it before. Number three, the guy who opened the shop about 1862, his name Johannes, and he's Swiss. Good fucking move. You always want a Swiss person touching your shit. And he has a 308 GT4 and then sold the shop to, and he still works there. I think he's 141. Great guy. He sold the guy to a guy named Danny who also has a 308 GT4. Mm-hmm. And I thought, if I'm going to give my 308 GT4 to someone to do timing belts on it, I'm going to give it to someone who I can say, treat it like your own fucking car and mean it and have them understand what that means. So I did.
Yeah, they maintained the car while I owned it.
They didn't do a belt.
They did not because it had been done just prior to my purchase.
The problem with this car is it's so good. It runs so well that I don't want to touch anything. So I haven't, like, my thing to him was, he's like, well, we're going to go through the carbs. I'm like, don't touch it. Just don't touch anything. It starts, it idles. It's perfect. It does everything right. He's like, how many miles has it been since the last service? And I don't even remember, 10, 12. And he's like...
Last belt service?
Belt service.
Oh, yeah. Less than that. How many miles are on the car now? 50 something, right?
58 maybe?
58?
No, I think I've only put 3,000, so 53. So but he was like, when was the last time you adjusted points? And I'm like, don't touch it. He's like, what do you mean you don't have an MSD? Like, he was shocked that it doesn't have an aftermarket ignition system. It doesn't have anything else. And I'm like, it is perfect. The day it stops being perfect, I'll put, computerized ignition in it. Until then, just please leave it alone. So that's my biggest fear, is that he's going to be like, I'm going to upgrade this, and the upgraded car is not going to run as well as the perfect one. So the good thing is he'll drive it, and he'll see. He'll probably notice 50 things that neither of us have noticed because he sees them all
It's
the
his
time.
job. Yeah. So do you need like emotional support?
I do.
In this time? I mean,
yeah, I went and hugged my Scirocco earlier today to make me feel better about this. Okay. Literally never paid anyone to do a belt. I mean, I once gave my E30 to my friend he did a fuel tank seal. Once I gave my E30, my other shitbox E30 to a friend to hold on to for us to schedule a motor swap, and he did it. But that's, Bill Arnold. It's Bill. He and Nate, they had nothing to do, so they swapped a new motor. They built me a 2.7. That's the motor that's now in my wagon. That was a surprise. All of a sudden, one day I came home and I'm like, what asshole parked an E30 in front of, oh, that's mine. And this is my old coupe. And I got in it, and I drove around the block. I'm like, oh my God, it's a 2.7. It's so fast.
Wow.
And, that was a surprise. But other than like my cars, the last time anyone's touched a Scirocco, it's got to be 15 years. I mean, it would have been an alignment shop, and I would have been sitting. It was. In fact, it was 10 years ago. I sat there and watched the guy. The owner was pissed off at me, brought me inside, and while I wasn't looking, he had his regular guy do the alignment, and the fucking camber bolt fell out when I was 1,000 miles away. And I veered into oncoming traffic.
Oh, wow.
No one touches my cars. I'm a terrible mechanic, but everyone is worse. But anyway.
They have successfully worked on that car in the past to great effect. I mean, the car functions.
We'll see. I had no choice in that. I really want to take that car to Monterey this year. So this year...
Car
week. Every year I take one of the old cars. I don't believe... This is a little judgmental, but this is an old classic car event, and it's that one time where you can street park literally anything and not worry about it because everyone is like-minded and everyone's there for old cars. And I just don't think it's appropriate to bring a modern car. I also don't really think it's appropriate at all to drive a press car, which a lot of our, colleagues do. Go get something fucking old and street park and leak oil everywhere.
I mean, if you live in like New York, it's a little bit harder to execute on that than if you live 2 hours drive away.
Haggerty drive share, Turo, go buy something. I mean, I have friends that live in Palm Springs. They'll just go buy something somewhere on the coast. It doesn't matter what it is and just make an adventure out of it. Like they bought a Lancia Beta Coupe once.
Ooh,
an SVX
how'd that work?
Once. Great. They had it for years. They found it was on Craigslist a month beforehand. They flew out, drove it, parked it somewhere, and then came back and it was their Pebble car. Distances aren't that great. It's not like, it works really well having an old car there.
Yes, I have to agree with that. The Giulietta was great last year.
Right.
For that purpose.
And did you bring this GT4 down one year
Twice, I think.
Wow.
I think I brought it in 15 and 17 or something like that. I forget.
Well, I've not brought that. I've not used that as my Pebble car. So the only 2 remaining cars that I own that haven't been to Pebble, other than Beatrice and the e-Golf, which no thanks, is the Honda Beat, which needs a belt, and the Ferrari, which needs 2 belts. And so I thought the Beat has no luggage area. It would really be a compromised.
I was very impressed by how little luggage space the Beat has.
It's fucking unbelievable.
It's wild. Like a shoebox would be genuinely like, oh, maybe we take the shoes out of the box.
I don't think a shoebox would fit in the trunk.
No, I think you have to put the shoes in without the box and throw the box
And even
away.
that, if they're large, like anything more than like size 11, no chance.
It's very small.
Yep. So the Ferrari's got a big trunk by comparison.
It does. I think it's a genuinely large trunk.
And I could take the spare tire out and fill up the frunk if I needed to, and then walk if anything happened. So yeah, the problem is the oil leak is so great that I have friends who are incredibly generous and let me use their guest house every year, which is walking distance from the lawn. And it's the most amazing thing. Unfortunately, their driveway is worth more than my entire life and yours and everything else. And so I can't oil slick it because it would cost them probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to undo the damage that I would do. So brought it to Dino. They're going to do belts on it, so I don't have to worry about it. And then also hopefully get the leaks to the point where I can put a drip tray under the car and not worry.
And not have it fill the drip tray up and overflow.
Mm-hmm. Which would go down to the bay and kill all the wildlife. People are like, we went to the Monterey Aquarium and it was black and everything was dead.
Yes. And bad news, sea otters are endangered again.
Exactly. Cammisa was on the peninsula with his leaky Ferrari.
Yeah, so you go down there. The highlight of Car Week, we've talked about Car Week on the show before, but the best thing about it to me is just driving around and all the cool old shit that you see that is sort of just being used like a regular old car. Ferrari Daytonas, 330s, old Alfa Romeos. There's a shitload of air-cooled Porsches to the point that you just don't even notice them anymore because there's too many of them.
Pebble Beach Pinto. They're everywhere.
Yeah. And then like a lot of new exotics and stuff like that, which, like you said, is not, I don't know. I guess it's better than showing up in a Ford Fusion rental car.
Look, if you got to have a rental car, you got to have a rental car. But if you're going to show up in your modern like Mercedes S-Class, go home.
I think that's preferable to like a wanker Ferrari or something like that.
Okay, I think you're going to have to define what constitutes a wanker Ferrari.
I would say, let's describe what the exemptions to wankerhood are. Manual, exactly.
That is so predictable.
The only turbocharged ones allowed are the
288 and a 40?
Yes, exactly. I guess, maybe a 208, a 308 turbo or whatever, the 208 turbo.
Anything manual is exempted. So that exempts the 488s and the Pistas and the 488 and Pista. Yeah.
And F8s.
And F8s.
Yeah, so there's always whatever the latest greatest Ferrari is, there's a ton of those. Okay, so why does this offend you so?
What, wanker Ferraris?
Mm-hmm.
I love the quote from David E. Davis when he reviewed the original 308 GT4.
Well, this is the first time you've ever said you liked anything that David E. Davis ever said.
He was an amazing writer and a great storyteller, but he was a douchebag. Does that mean? I never met the man, but I couldn't read automobile. As a 12-year-old, I couldn't read automobile because I'm like, this holier than thou twat was all about, let's go have wine and cheese and go to great places. I understand that now as an adult, but then I was just like, he's a little bit
pretentious, pompous.
Yeah. But he did really write a couple of great articles.
He's great with words.
Yeah. Including obviously the 2002, the hymn for the 2002,
Never read it.
Are you serious? That was the reason why the BMW 2002 became a thing was because of his article.
This is before automobile existed. This was for Car and Driver. Got it.
Yeah. But in the review of the 308 GT4, he basically said Enzo despised all of his customers, which was true. And he was talking about the effete San Franciscans who would complain about like air conditioning or something. Like it was, I don't remember exactly what the quote, but it was the effete San Francisco customers. And I was like, okay, I'm not that feminine. And I don't really give a shit about the fucking air conditioning. It wasn't AC, but anyway, his point was that Enzo despised the rich douchebags who drove his cars because they were buying them as status symbols and didn't know how to operate them. And so I got to think my personal distaste for whatever modern supercar is out there right now has everything to do with the people who drive them and how they drive them and nothing to do with the cars. But it's the people that those cars attract. And then I feel guilty for hating a person I don't even know and judging them. And then it just goes.
Do you like the cars?
No.
Okay. So that maybe runs slightly.
I've never liked cars. I never had like a Testarossa on my wall. I had a Peugeot 405 MI16 on my wall. I actually did one Porsche. It was a 944 S2 cab. I don't know why I had a poster of that. Probably because that's what I picked up at the New York Auto Show or something. But I was always wolf in sheep clothing type person and not an overt sports car person. But you were different? While you sit there and quietly judge me?
Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
How do we characterize this?
You just tell me everybody's a douchebag except for you, and then we're on even footing. That's what I basically said.
These cars have a great deal of capability built into them, and I fear that a lot of people who own them don't use that capability. And there's a value judgment that you put on it when you say that it's bad to not use all the capability, right? That's on me. I fully accept that that's maybe unfair. But why does all that capability exist if not to use it? And so these cars, I think, should be exercised thoroughly, and a lot of people don't do that. And Ferry Porsche said the same thing. I mean, like when I've used the phrase Porsche weenies before. Porsche people do this too, right? They're so obsessively concerned about correctness and whether it's matching, and all of the people who are out there cleaning cars with that. I do not have the patience to show a car. I would never, ever do that. I just don't give a shit.
I'm just going to cower in the corner. Keep insulting me.
Yep. All that.
Listen, there are all flavors. Let me be nice here for once, because somebody's got to be nice. There are all flavors of car enthusiasts. Some people love cars for the way they look, some cars for the way they sound, for the way they smell, the way they drive, the way they handle. I mean, there are a million different reasons you can love cars. I don't typically see eye to eye with people who drive cars because of what that says about them. I mean, I just got interviewed by someone who I didn't realize was going to publish this video interview. And he's like, what do you think when I say the word luxury. And I just immediately I said douchebag. And he was like mortified. He's like, why would you say that? I'm like, because anyone who's in search of a luxury experience is a douchebag. That's why.
Okay, so this actually raises something that always has annoyed me. And it usually comes from people who are well-meaning and just don't know anything about cars. And so I have to just say that this is not their thing and this is not their area of expertise and they don't give a shit. But people are characterizing the interactions that I have with cars as a luxury experience, and they think of it as being fancy. And I'm like,
and you're like
if you only knew what it was,
Romeo down
like
the side of the road.
Standing on the side of the road without any shade or water, waiting for a tow truck. It's not a luxurious experience, and that's not the draw of this activity. It's not about luxury. And when people are like, oh, they call it your, deal in the sales of luxury cars. I'm like, this is like the opposite of luxury, actually. Power takeoff unit failure on a Ferrari FF, not a luxurious experience.
Well, not for anyone except the parts guy.
Yeah, all of that's true. So the appeal is not, like you say, in terms of what it says to other people or the image that it portrays. And if somebody is buying a car for that reason, I automatically disagree with them. The temptation is to say that they are not car enthusiasts or they're bad enthusiasts or whatever. That's a value judgment, and that's my perspective. That's like sort of, my own philosophy. But these types of cars, if you're going to buy a car with this kind of capability, I think you should learn how to use a lot of its capability. Otherwise, from my perspective, what is the point?
So when 991.1 GT3 came out, I got into an argument with Andreas Preuninger, and he was very upset, having come from Geneva Auto Show where they dropped the car and everyone just fucking pitchforks and flaming,
effigies.
Quite upset. And so he had just been really beat up, and I didn't know him. This is the first time I ever met him. And he was like, these fucking people. And I'm like, I'm one of them. Sorry. And in the argument that we got into, which was what established, I'd like to say, our friendship. I mean, we're not close friends, but we chat every once in a while on the DMs. I said, come back to me and talk to me in a year when you're so pissed off that all your GT3 customers in LA are bitching about brake dust and brake squealing, and there's not enough sound deadening because I can't take a call with a meeting on my Bluetooth and whatever, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, fuck you, blah, 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 drive the car. Drove the car. He was 100% right. It was amazing. Absolutely phenomenal to drive. A year later, 8 months later, whatever it was, he had invited me personally to Cayman GT4. And I didn't know why until I got there, when he said the number one warranty complaint on GT3 was squeaky brakes. Mm-hmm. And he was violent that there were people that had like 30,000 kilometers already on their cars. And he's like, you don't buy a GT3 to put 30,000 highway miles on it commuting. And I'm like, that's what happens when you put an automatic in your car. You're just going to get the wrong customers, guaranteed.
Yes, and the thing about the 997 GT3 that made it so special is that as soon as you got in and you pushed down the clutch, you're like, oh, that's too heavy. It's not the car for me.
Exactly. It automatically weeded out the douchebags. No offense to douchebags. I like plenty of douchebags. But it made a very clear intent that car was not meant to be driven every day. You started, the flywheel made all kinds of horrible noises. Yeah, and it was just...
The shifter effort and the clutch effort were enormous. Yep. And the car rides so hard. The thing about the 991 is it rides really gently. Mm-hmm. And like it's no more physically demanding to drive a 991 GT3 than a Carrera, effectively. Right.
And the result is now they're selling for $100,000 or $150,000.
Yeah, because everybody wants one.
And I have a very good friend, you know this person, I'm not going to say his initials, but he wants a GT3 badly. Like, this is now dream car, full mission. He has the financial means to do it. He's opposed to paying $150,000 over sticker, but not that opposed. And I'm like, sorry. GT3, perfect $180,000 car, $150,000, $130,000 car. That's the best sports car you can buy. 300,000, no go, no way, no how. It's just not good enough to be a $300,000 car, right? Go and buy something old and have a real experience if you want to be miserable for $300,000. And he's just fucking absolutely dead set. He doesn't know how to drive. And I don't mean this as an insult to him. Yes, he can drive a car, but he's never been on a racetrack. He's never done an autocross. He's not one to redline his cars. He drives quickly. He has a lot of really fast cars, but this is one step too far. I keep saying to him, like, first of all, I think 991's a better choice for most people anyway, because it's got a nicer interior, and the benefits of 992 are on bumpy, twisty back roads at 10 tenths, i.e. the Nürburgring. That's where the huge dividends of switching to a control arm front suspension from struts really start to pay off. So why spend twice what you'd spend on a 991 GT3 Touring on a 992 when you're not going to take advantage of the benefits? And if you're not going to rev the thing to $9,000, don't. Just go get a base Carrera. Just go get something else. But he wants the best. And I understand he deserves the best. He works really, really hard. He saves. He's done the work. But then I cringe and say he's the type of person who's going to go back to the dealership and be like, I'm sorry, this is a $250,000 car. I shouldn't hear brake squealing. You're the wrong fucking customer. But this is what happens. You make something amazing and the wrong customers want it. That's Ferrari's biggest problem.
Yeah, there is. I feel this way often about meritocracy generally, is that when these things get expensive, it's the people who can afford them are not necessarily people who can deserve them. When I think about somebody who knows... Love that. Meritocracy in terms of like automotive chops, right? There's someone out there who desperately wants one of these cars, who can't afford it, and who knows all the details and the technical specifics of it, and is probably a good enough driver honed through years of whatever cars they've owned that are within their means, and they desperately want this car, but they just can't afford it because it's $250,000. And then there's all these, and those people are a group of people who deserve to have the cars. And then there are some of those people who have the means and can afford to buy the car, but those people I think are the minority. And then the rest of the people who buy the car are people who have the money, but not necessarily that deep passion and knowledge and expertise and just full-blooded commitment to the idea of what the car truly is. And there has always been a disconnect between who I feel like merits the car in terms of their enthusiasm and knowledge and passion and all of the stuff that makes a true red-blooded enthusiast, and the people who can afford it. And those groups don't overlap very much.
No.
And that's been true for decades and decades. Right. And I think that's the core of what Enzo Ferrari's comment is about whether, the people who can buy the cars and whether they truly deserve them or not.
I mean, deserve is a strong word. And I really like that you used it because I agree with you. I mean, my good friend doesn't deserve a GT3. He needs to go out and learn how to drive the fucking thing. Go drive a Miata first. Go drive something else and graduate to that car. But this is, anyone who bought a Pista over a 488, I'm sorry to tell you, I don't work for ISSIMI anymore, but I mean, you bought the wrong car. If you think you can handle a Pista.
Well, here, counterpoint.
Oh, now I'm going to feel like an asshole.
What if this person is like, I don't need to use all the capability. I just want to have the best one because that's what makes me happy. I want the stripes.
That's what I would say to the person we were just talking about with GT3. And this is where I struggle, right? So we've just had a amazing
save.
Gravity just pulled Paolo's headphones up somehow, and they flew into the wall, and he poured water all over his crotch. Did you just pee yourself? Paolo made a pee. I love it. We're going to have technical issues. We're going to call it out and then make fun of the nameless, or the faceless Paolo. It's like, no one knows what he's really like. No one knows if he really exists. All we know is he's gold as Stig. Sorry. Yeah, I run into that same problem with my buddy who wants a GT3. He's a wonderful person. And like I said, he works hard. He wants it. He deserves it. So I want him to have it. But at the same time, I also continue to steer him away from it because I just don't think he's going to use what's there. And so,
but do you have to use it in order to be a deserving owner?
No. But then I'm sorry to say,
you're less cool in my eyes.
You're just a douchebag. I'm sorry. Nothing is more fun than going to a Ferrari track day in a shit pile. Have you done that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. But
I'm interested. Because I can imagine the experience.
Oh my God. The two stories that I can give you. The first one is I always did PCA, Porsche Club of America driving schools when I lived in the Midwest. And I did not have a Porsche. I had a Golf. And my third ever school was at Putnam Park Raceway, which is a great little track. And I was in my VR6 Golf, which understeered terribly, overheated all the time on the track. I used to crack brake rotors and have to replace them halfway through the weekend. I mean, the car was just
not suited.
And this was my third track day. So it's not like I had a lot of experience with this stuff. So I was like C group or B group or something. I got out of D really fast because I was too fast, and I made the instructors laugh by flinging the car sideways into a corner, and they'd be like, you can't do the, oh my God, you did it. And I would be swerving in terrible form through all of the other students. And they're like, we got to get this idiot out of the D group because he's going to kill someone. So I graduated past my means and then sort of stayed there for a while until I actually learned how to control my shit. And by control my shit, I mean not fuck up and then have to use car control skills to unfuck it up, which is my natural state. There was a guy there. So I'm in my VR, right? So it's Mark III. There was a guy there with a Lotus Esprit V8 Turbo. And I believe
it's not a car I would want to track.
Orange. And he helicoptered in. So he was
in a $80,000 car?
He was Midwest rich. He had a team of people and showed up in a truck, and the mechanics with like the suits and the whole thing would take the car to the truck, and he would helicopter in and he would do a track day. And he, I think after about 200 track days, was still a B student or whatever it was. And we all knew who he was, and we all knew that he was not able to drive this car. And finally I caught up to him in the golf, and it was the same situation. After every straight, he'd gone. It was that flat plane V8, made all kinds of screaming noises. And then I'd be so far on his ass that he actually wound up leaving soot on my front bumper. Like that was my favoriteest thing. But they would blue flag him and blue flag him and blue flag him and blue flag him. And finally I passed him sideways, cut on the inside of him, flicked the car sideways, to my instructor's absolute horror. But I'm like, I'm fucking sick of this. I paid for a track day. I'm stuck behind this douche in a fucking Lotus that doesn't know what he's doing. So it kind of came in way too hot, sideways, past him, and goodbye. I never saw him again. They black flagged him and sent his ass home. Him. Because they had been so sick of having him come up to them and say, I'm not letting that Volkswagen pass me. Happened to my friend Ben in his Scirocco when he was there. All the guys in the old 911s. He was just holier than thou. And finally we get rid of him. And then this next douche comes in, and it was a GT3 when, it was 996, I think GT3 at the time. This guy comes in, and the instructor came in, and I saw him telling the organizers, I got out of the car because the guy wasn't listening to me and he's going to crash it. And he kept saying, I don't care about the line. I just want to go fast. And as he's saying this to the organizers, and the organizers are like, we're going to have to pull this guy out of the car. Like, we're going to black flag him out of here. We hear. He went into fucking orbit. This is at Beaver Run in Pennsylvania. Went into orbit and smashed into the wall and totaled this brand new car. And that was my early experience with quote unquote supercar drivers, where they were looking at the guys in the Volkswagens and the Hondas and the Mazdas and like, those peasants have no right to be in my way, and how dare they try to pass me? When they should have been like, why is that guy in a Miata lapping me? Let me learn how to do something. These are people who just had the money to compensate for a deficiency and couldn't do it. And that really turned me off to supercar drivers. And go to a Ferrari track day in a Miata and you'll see, not everyone, obviously, you can see a lot of people who can't keep up with a Miata because they don't have to. I just think that's sad. Yeah. Use your tool. Like, come up with grow as a fucking person, for fuck's sake.
I mean, yeah, this is why I don't track the GT3. That's why I track the Miata. That and the cost. But mostly I would say that I want to make sure that I'm a competent enough operator before I'm out there in the GT3. Nobody wants to be a slow guy in the fast car.
Except all those guys.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I don't understand it either.
Okay, so is it problematic to own a car with all this capability and not use it? Right, these people also, to be fair, deserve credit for bothering to go to the track and trying to learn to drive.
God, stop making me feel like such a jerk.
Well, I mean, where would you put them in the hierarchy against people who don't do that? And is it okay to just have the car with all this capability and not use it? Is there
I guess you get 3/4 of a pass from me if you go to the track and you try so long as you're not the dude in the GT3 who's like, I don't care about the line, I just want to go fucking fast. He got exactly what he deserved. The instructor should have been fired for forever signing off on him and letting him go out alone. But the guy was scared for his life. Well, then kick him out and make him go home. But no, you do get a lot of credit. What I really love to see is guys who go out in their really fast, really capable cars. And then come back in and say, you know what? I'm going to go buy a Miata, or I'm going to go buy a GTI
M3.
Or something reasonable, because they realize that they're being passed by people with a quarter as much horsepower. And so something's wrong. That's what I love. I love those, watching people come to the conclusion that they maybe don't know how to fully operate their machine.
Okay.
And I think really once you've experienced the joy that is just completely annihilating really expensive, really high horsepower cars with something terrible. Like this just happened. Bill Arnold, I've talked about him before as my good friend, the BMW legend who's won Targa Newfoundland a couple times. His wife, I think she won one lap, and they've done one lap a couple times. The last 2 times they did it was when she was pregnant with Derek. And then the year later when Derek was like 4 months old, they did one lap of America. Now Derek is 18 and he joined our race team, and he's running lemons and whatever. And he just came back from his graduation present was like, they did a whole bunch of different racetracks across the US in Jethro, their shitbox E36 race car. That's, I think it's a 2.8 in it. It's nothing special. And he came back and he was like, oh yeah, I was at Barber, I think it was. I was passing Porsches and Ferraris, and I just left all these guys in McLarens for dead. And he got bit. Like he just got bit by the bug of, I'm here in a 20-something-year-old pile of crap race car that's just got like shock springs and tires on it. And I'm faster than the...
You need a car that reaches that level, because in the Miata, I'm not quite there. I'll be up someone's ass and then they'll drive away from me in the straight.
Yeah, but if you can catch up again, then it just becomes a challenge.
Then you're just yo-yoing, which, can be frustrating. That's why I would like a Miata with a K-swap. Like just still like a 200 horsepower car instead of a 100 horsepower
maneuver
car.
them off the track. That's fully legal and in good form, right?
And definitely we'll get you an invite back.
All right, but so you work with people who drive many, many $1 million cars and hundreds of thousands of dollars of cars. Do you find that they're true enthusiasts in the way that you would consider them true enthusiasts?
There is passion for cars, and I appreciate passion for cars. The thing to me is I'm not so focused on the people who operate them as the cars themselves. I'm a little bit annoyed that the cars exist. And the reason for that is...
Damn you sunshine, damn you sky, damn you clouds, damn you grass.
Yes.
I hate people. It's much easier.
I think, let's see. Did you leave anything else out to curse?
Air, damn you oxygen,
petroleum,
damn you UV.
These cars, I want to use all of the capability of a car, and maybe that's something that's deficient with me, and a lot of people don't feel that way. And it's okay for them to go out and just make noises and go fast and have something that looks like a doorstop, and that experience gives them value, and I have to be okay with that. I have to just say that there are some people who are just going to drive 66 miles an hour in the left lane. There are people who have a fundamentally different view of the world.
Doesn't mean they're not assholes if they're 66 miles an hour in the left lane.
I mean, that's a different group of person. Okay. Yeah, these are different groups of people than people who buy supercars. But I have to just be okay with the fact that different strokes for different folks. Right. And while we both are enthusiastic about cars, it manifests differently. And for me, those types of cars are really frustrating because in order to be having a good time in them, you are going so fast that you can't possibly do it on the street. And to get all of the value out of the car, you have to be on track. And some people are okay with just, I'm not going to use all of the capability of the car. Like, calm down. I don't need all of the capability. I have it for other reasons. I have it because when I was a child, I wanted a Ferrari, and now I have one, and it's okay with that. I mean, this is the rant that I go on associated with 355s or 550s or whatever the car is that objectively is garbage or whatever.
It's fucking terrible, or it's great. That was a really great pullback.
But they have to just, they're okay with it. Mm-hmm. And this is a thing that they are okay doing that I am not. And that's right. The difference.
You and I experience a lot of pleasure driving at the limit. The limit of adhesion, limit of power, limit of revs, limit of all that. Not everyone does that.
Yes.
I find that most modern cars are so incredibly competent that you can't explore the limits of any of it without getting in trouble. And there have always been outliers. I mean, you go back and you read reviews of F40s and, other hypercars and supercars when they were new. And it's so much fun to watch, to look back and see how the minds were blown of the reviewers. Or C43 was another one. They were like, we couldn't see straight. Peugeot 505 SDX, I remember European Sport said they got physically ill from the braking on that car. And it was 181 feet so 139 from 60, which would be very good today. But it was just so far out of bounds of what they were used to. However, what hasn't changed is our speed limits. And what hasn't changed is our sight lines around corners. And so Now we're at a point where cars are so unbelievably capable, they don't even fit into our world. And, Teslas are that way acceleration wise, but supercars they were always ahead of the curve. And you could always say, wow, this was mind-blowing performance. But the speeds at which people drive have not changed in the last 50 years. And the cars have. And so they're bored.
Yes, I would say that you spend more of a percentage of the time bored in the car that is really fast by modern standards than you do in an old car. And so the question becomes for me, like imagine now, for example, the Miura. The Miura is something that is so experience intensive that try not to become physically ill from the experience. It leaves you with all of this experience, hairball, that you are left instead with the experience, and there's something there. So you get this wild experience instead.
What did you say at lunch? If I don't need medical treatment.
Oh, yes. If I don't need medical attention after interacting with the car, then I'm not interested. That's my fundamental complaint with the E39 M5, apparently. Although I did sort of feel like I maybe needed something to not lose my lunch after all the heaving from that car.
Wow. Poor Derek. Life is so hard for Derek, Tam-Scott.
I mean, I've just saved myself the effort of buying an E39 M5.
Well, congratulations. But no, here's the thing. Even the Blackwing. So, last week we talked again extensively about the Blackwing. Those both of them are among the best sports sedans ever made, I would say. I had a really, really wonderful time in CT4V Blackwing, especially at the end of the filming of the Icons episode that was on the CT5V. Probably should have been on the 4 because I like it better, but I didn't know that until we were filming, and it was too late. But I did a whole bunch of backroad insane runs in CT4V and then left that production in Beatrice, the shitbox E30. And I don't think I made it a half a mile before I started laughing and thinking to myself, sorry, Blackwing, no contest. E30 was better. And it wasn't
better, meaning more fun, more fun. Entertaining,
at the same,
more joyful.
Right, at 20, 30, 40% less speed, I had 200, 300, 400% more fun. The engine's more talkative. It's fizzier. It sounds better. I felt way more steering input, way more shorter gears, more work to do. I mean, it was just every part of that experience was more pleasurable than it was in the Blackwing. And then you go one step further than Blackwing or 5 steps further than Blackwing, and you go into something like a 488 or a Ferrari Roma or any of these supercars, and they're genuinely bored at the normal sort of backroad speed that you're willing to do. And I think that
this is the crux of the issue as I see it, I believe. The question is, what do you find fun? What is fun to you? Like, how does whoever the person in question is, how do you define fun? And we have a very specific and probably outliery, like way outside of the fringe definition of what fun is. And that's why these types of cars don't appeal to us. If you have a more conventional definition of fun, then I think that these cars, these cars that don't resonate with us probably can be the answer for you. But our desire to be outside of the limit or at or beyond the limit of something is probably the reason why these cars don't resonate with us.
That's totally
and
true.
If you are not one of those people, if you're a more conventional definition of fun, you want something that has a lot of visual impact, or you want something that's very nice inside, or you want something that is an extension of a dream that you had as a child, then these cars satisfy
The funny thing is, it's so easy to judge those groups of people as groups of people, right? So it's so easy to say, oh, these Ferrari douchebags, they don't know how to drive their cars or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then you start talking to the individual and you wind up stumbling on my buddy who wants a GT3. And you're like, you know what? I don't share the same joys that he gets out of a car, and I don't share the same reasons why I want it, but I totally agree he deserves that car. He's earned it. But financially and otherwise. I mean, he's paid his dues with shit boxes and hot hatches and Alfa Romeos and all kinds of other stuff. Now he wants a GT3, and I really want him to have that. So it's a very strange thing that I can look at a group of people and say, that's a bunch of Ferrari owning douchebags who have no right to have that car. But I bet you anything, if I talk to them individually, I would say, dude, go get it. And
mostly. And then every so often there's
just a fucking douchebag.
Yeah. Just a straight up, chrome wrapped Lamborghini with Forgiato wheels that you're just like.
Yeah, I was going to send you a trap, but I'm sure if you talk to that person, they would actually be a cool person. or not? If Daddy bought it for them, absolutely.
Here is the. I think one of the issues is, do you genuinely like cars, or are you interested in the image that this portrays to the outside world? And that's a pretty important distinction. If you genuinely like cars and the reason why you are into this car is something internal, then I think that gets a lot of credit. Whereas if the primary concern is
Showing
external
off.
projection, then I think that that's probably always to be condemned.
It's so funny because I would agree with you, and then remember back when I bought my 996, I was also looking at Corvettes and said I couldn't be the guy. I couldn't be seen in that car. It was a C5 at the time. I just couldn't do it. And so, funny enough, as much as I say I love the car and I love cars for the sake of driving and the engines and all the rest of the stuff, none of us is exempt from the.
I have indicated a willingness to drive a Cadillac.
Okay, I'm trying to think. Is there something you?
That's a frontier that's a new frontier for me.
If you drove an Aventador, hands down the best sounding car in production from the outside. If you loved the way it drove, would you be that guy who showed up in an Aventador? Genuinely, would you do it?
What I would probably do is I would probably drive the car at night in remote places.
With very dark tinted windows.
Yeah.
And a hat and sunglasses.
With a paper bag on my head.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Chris Bangle was right.
Yes.
He described cars
car
as
an avatar. It is an identity that you assume.
Right.
But anytime someone wants to project that image, it's just like this is always the case, and it doesn't matter what kind of car it is. When you see weird customizations and like when people are putting fake carbon fiber hoods on whatever modern, economy car or something like that, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, what is the appeal of that? What is
easy to make fun of them and then go talk to them. My 18-year-old nephew is the one that reopened my eyes to this whole thing, because remember, I got him that G35 coupe here. He hit a deer. It's now back on the road. And of course, he's modifying the shit out of it. And the first thing he did was a really loud exhaust on it. And now he did taillights, headlights, front bumper, blah, blah. He wants to lower it, the whole thing. He's in love with that car. He's in absolute love with that car. And all of this, he just drove that from the southeast of the U.S. where he lives all the way to Chicago, 15 hours each way to go to some like stanced, slammed shitbox convention that it made his fucking world. And so it's so easy to sit here on the left coast and these fucking liberal assholes and say, well, look, what is he wasting all his money on that car? He spent more on that exhaust than, we spent buying the car. He loves it. It makes his world. How could I judge him for that? How could I think douchebag kid or, FICA 250. he's in a Nissan. He's got no credit. I mean, like I hear this all the time. Oh, he's in a Nissan. He's got no credit. Somebody's got people constantly making fun of Nissans. That whole VQ world is enormous, and these people love their cars. Passionate, real enthusiasts.
Right. So then here's the litmus test. Would you rather have one of those people, or a person who's like, we must electrify everything and make driving illegal and make everybody live within walking distance of everywhere they need to go and all that stuff, So it's like
those people deserve to die.
So it's like some car enthusiasm is better than no car enthusiasm.
Pick something and love it for what it is, not what it makes you look like, even though that's fine if you have to do that.
I mean, this is the way you are about Porsches.
You know that I respect the shit out of 911s. And I just make fun of 911 drivers, mostly because you have two of them, but also because they're an obvious choice. But if you need to have one sports car, damn well I fucking buy a 911 again. I already had one. But I get that question all the time. You seem like such a 911 guy. Why do you have one? I can't have anything that good. It'll just highlight how shitty all the other cars I have are. I mean, seriously, what do? You go get me a 997 GT3 RS 4-liter. Like, everything else can fuck off and die. I don't want it anymore. That's not a good thing for someone who wants to be a hoarder.
Yeah, I mean, so that to me is kind of the ultimate driver's car of the modern era. It's just something that is exactly the right blend between good and engaging and fun, and makes you work and get something out of it. When the car doesn't make you work, I'm always a little bit like,
Yeah, if I had to daily drive it every day,
it's like bang, kill, marry, right? The one that you marry is the one that really has this enduring sort of depth to it that has this continued engagement, and you learn stuff and it challenges you and you're growing together and all that stuff. If it's so outrageously good and beautiful that it drops trow immediately and then like on the first date, then, you know, that's bang, right? It's good, but there's no sort of ongoing...
Are you offended by this? Because I'm a little bit offended by this.
You're not offended. Nothing offends you. Very few things offend you. Certain things do offend you.
Okay, but you're talking about dropping trow on the first date.
Yeah. That's how I feel about a lot of like modern cars that are so fast that it's just like you immediately
that
jump in.
You just want to drop trow? You disgust me. You just jump in. Sorry, I'll keep going.
Supercars.
Supercars are
too
drop
good.
trow. Too good.
Too good, too fast. Mm-hmm. Too soon. Too easy to go fast. I want good. I want entertaining.
All right, so if that's bang and then marry, what are you killing? You brought this shit up. I'm just going to hold you to it.
I mean, where should I start? Chargers weaving through traffic at 115 miles an hour.
More so than Altima's weaving through traffic at 115 miles an hour?
Either, both, yes.
Oh, okay. Anyone in the left lane not actively passing anyone. And by left lane, I mean anything other than the rightmost lane. The
rightmost, yes, exactly. Overtaking, not overtaking. Everybody going...
Hold on, let's just do it this way. Anyone in my way.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, this has been a potentially controversial and fairly heated...
That's true. It started out with possibly the most sexist and disgusting things I've ever said, which is hard.
While the camera was rolling.
No, I'm pretty much me on camera. This is the problem. I mean, I could be, you know...
Yes, for anyone who's asking what the linear what Jason is like to hang out, I would say it's a linear extrapolation of what you see here.
Same shit. Yeah. Linear extrapolation translates to same shit.
Yes.
And you too. He's like, boop, 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 like, you know, robot and then facts and then robots and then very well thought out pregnant pauses while his processing speed ramps up and then he can sort of...
And periodic rage.
Yeah, that's true. You haven't raged at me on the show yet. I mean, this is 60-something episodes where you've not been, oh, shut the fuck up, or something like that.
I mean, I think that's because we're probably pretty philosophically aligned.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go buy a fucking Aventador and wrap it in gold leaf. How about that?
I would get a lot of amusement out of that if you were to do that. I would be...
I would get a lot of amusement out of it because I'd sell it and take the money to do something else because I can't afford an Aventador. Yeah. They're a lot of money.
Yeah.
Can you imagine me showing up something like, after the high horse, high fucking brow speeches I've given, I'm going to show up in some automatic shitbox fucking supercar one day, be like, oh, I've had a change of heart. I like this when I'm sitting in traffic. And it's got a lot of sound deadening. I can be on calls. Never.
Hell freezes over.
Yeah, hell freezes over. But I am one of those Ferrari douchebags now who has paid someone to do my timing belts. And before the 10-year mark, which, let's be honest, is when you probably should do it. Because, 5 years or 3 years or something, it's a waste of money.
I agree with that. But it's also kind of one of the... I mean, we've had this conversation before, but I think Ferraris can be made douche-proof through a number of mechanisms. And this car pretty much has all of them. One of them is age. One of them is having 4 seats. Mm-hmm. And another manual transmission. And being not red.
Not and this car, rosso of corso.
Yes. So this car checks 4 of the douche-proofing tips. This is the title of this episode, How to Douche-Proof Your Ferrari.
I'm not. I think this is the point at which we end episode number 60.
2 or 3
of the
Carmudgeon Show,
which is part of the
Haggerty Podcast Network.
He just clapped.
With no wind up at all.
Wow. I'm impressed.